Welcome to the first edition of Ruck and Maul for 2015. I'm joined, of course, by Greg Growden. Greg, what did you make of that incredible first round of Super Rugby?
Absolutely bizarre. We had two teams who we thought were going to come out of the blocks firing, the Crusaders and Waratahs, and they were so limp. And then you had crazy things happening in other games, in particular the Brumbies-Reds game in Canberra, where it was Benny Hill stuff, watching James Horwill, who was the captain at the last World Cup for the Wallabies, completely lose the plot, penalised 6 times, and ends up getting a red card. And in a year where we'll be talking constantly about what players are going to make the World Cup squad and who are not, I tell you what, James Hall will have to do a lot to get back in the good books with Michael Cheika after that, because Cheika this year will demand from his forwards ultimate discipline. He will not want forwards who can constantly infringe at the breakdown. So, James Hall, you've got to do a lot to get back, mate, or you'll be a spectator.
You've got some news on the Shoot Shield, Greg. Of course, last year the ABC made the decision not to show it this year. You got an update? Yeah,
there's a bit going on there because I know a lot of people are very, very upset that the ABC no longer showing club football in Sydney and also Brisbane. But there's a bit of a whisper that even SBS or Seven Mate may be showing some of that this year. And there's a lot actually going on with the broadcasting rights at the moment. In about a month or so, SANZAAR should announce a bigger broadcasting deal with News Corp and so forth. And it looks as if they're going to get about 35 to 40 million a year in Australia, which will really boost the finances and hopefully get Australian rugby out of the parlour state it's been in for quite a while.
Bill Pulver, he was pretty confident about this, getting that figure, which I think is pretty similar to what the A-League got. Are you surprised they've managed to work that out?
Well, there's a couple of things working in their favour. Is that what has basically worked in Australia's favour is that there was a big bidding war over in Europe, and that has increased the whole broadcasting rights. Also, the drop in the Australian dollar has also helped because the broadcasting deal has always been in US dollars. So that's boosted it as well. But let's enjoy it, because at a time where you've got super rugby teams crying poor, the grassroots very upset with the AU with the participation levy, if there's any extra money in the till, it will help everyone. So let's hope this 35 to 40 million deal does come through.
Of course, the Melbourne Rebels were big winners first up over in Christchurch against the Crusaders, but you've got news on a potential relocation for them?
That's right, Sam. It revolves with Waratahs first up, because the Waratahs have decided to stick with the Sydney Cricket Ground Trust, play all their home games for a decade or so at Moore Park. So Homebush, where they have played games, are wondering, well, what are we going to do? We've got enormous facilities here, and why don't we try to get a team? And you also got to understand out of Homebush, there's a lot of major companies located there. So they're thinking, Sydney West, big ground for players, needs a team because the support's there. Maybe we should relocate a team. Who is the obvious choice? The Melbourne Rebels, because they've been struggling ever since the private ownership deal fell apart. ARU have been propping up with an enormous amount of money. So they're thinking, well, why don't we talk about getting them there? First up, maybe play some games there or bring them there. So there's quite a lot going on. And I can see the ARU being a little bit intrigued by this, because they would gladly get the Rebels off their hands, because it's sucking so much money out of the organisation.
There's been a few murmurings about the makeup of the Super Rugby draw this season. The Highlanders are playing, I think, about the first 5 or 6 games at home, and then they go away for a long spell, while the Waratahs had their first home game at the weekend, but aren't back at Allianz Stadium for about another 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's bizarre what's going on this year. Well, great to see the Waratahs first up playing a Sunday game in Sydney. The punters love Sunday games, and you've got a 20,000 crowd. And you think, if defending champions, let's work on the momentum. So why not have them playing the Crusaders, have a reenactment of the final early on? But no, that's not till May. And then defending champions are suddenly not going to be in the home ground till late March. And there's crazy segments of it everywhere. You've got the Sharks sitting at home for about 9 or 10 weeks. So I think SANZAAR have got to really look hard at the scheduling of games and show a bit more brains here, because there are wasted opportunities, and looking at the schedule doesn't make much sense.
Something to check out for sure, of course, at espnscrum.com. Greg, I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Sam.